All right, here we go. Welcome back, everybody, to the Energy for Sales live podcast. We are excited today to again continue the journey of sales leadership, and obviously you're joining from somewhere in that trifecta, and also other industries. We have some healthcare folks on. We have a mortgage professionals, real estate agents, title agency sales folks. So welcome, come one, come all. But today we're excited because we have the distinct pleasure of having our friend Justin Cook on the show. So Justin, say hi to everybody, man.
Hi, everybody, man. Oh,
Oh,
yeah, thanks
goodness.
for having me. It's great to be here.
Absolutely. It's great to have you. And I'm sorry, just skip forward here, but Justin, you are a EOS implementer. Like, what does that mean? Implementation coach for EOS. Like, what does that mean?
Yeah, so EOS stands for the Entrepreneurial Operating System. And the long and short of it is I work with leadership teams of small to medium-sized businesses to help the leadership team get aligned on their vision, get traction on achieving the vision, and get more healthy as a team and operate more open and honest with each other and just be more functional and cohesive.
It's fantastic. David, when did you first meet Justin? I know we had him on our virtual summit, 2 years ago? But you met him and you were like, Tim, we got to have this guy on because of his approach to sales. And we've loved him ever since. But give us a little bit of the history.
Yeah, so Justin and I were part of a mastermind through one of the local banks here that we each used in our businesses. And he and I clearly were like-minded, enjoyed our time together, continued to have conversations regarding culture and sales and all the things that are so vitally important that we talked about here. Seems like a long time. It's probably been 5 years, Justin, 5 or 6 years. And, from there, continue to meet on a regular basis, share introductions of those that we feel would add value to each other. And just a great friendship and collaboration. I was super excited to have him on, and I love the work he does, and, believe in what he does and how he does it. And just really thought it would, again, be a great value add to our audience. To understand, Justin's got a unique selling style, and we're going to get into that. I have always respected the fact that he knows what's a good fit, and he won't get pushed all over the board. His relationships, his business relationships, it's paramount to have the utmost of transparency between the executive teams and himself, in addition to someone that is like-minded with him. So I've always tremendously respected his ability to know the right type of clients and to say no early to those that aren't. And he has, a couple tried and true methods. But, today we're going to talk a little bit about navigating objections, closing the deal. We've talked before. The close is just a continuation, a byproduct of those conversations and everything being done correctly up to that point. So excited about today. I'll shut up.
Hey, it's great stuff. So again, welcome, Justin. And again, mindset shifts. It's all about mindset shifts. And every time I'm around you, Justin, you shift my mindset, and you help me unleash growth in my life professionally that I didn't even know was possible. So thanks for investing your time here on the a live version of the podcast. And then for those of you who have already sent in questions, again, you could send those questions throughout the month. Real quick, can you see my screen? You guys can see the banner screen. Okay, let me progress through the slides real quick and just run through some of the housekeeping. So again, like David said, navigating objections and closing the deal, we'll dig deep in today. All of the live podcasts are uploaded to the Energy for Sales YouTube channel. So if you haven't followed it yet, I'll leave this QR up just for a moment, but follow along on YouTube. And we just launched this, is sending recordings out afterwards. They get lost in our inboxes. There's some obscure link somewhere. We're like, let's just get them all on standardized. And so we put them on the YouTube channel. So follow along over there. You can also send in your questions throughout the month that, every month we come back and bring somebody like Justin on, but then answer your questions. Last month we had Sam Trimble on because we had so many questions around getting on stage and speaking. And Sam is one of the best in our industry. So if you didn't get a chance to listen into that one, again, over on YouTube, you'll find Sam's golden orator voice. So, but you can send us your questions throughout the month using either the Jot form link that we send out each month. Whenever you get the reminder email, there's also the link for sending in your questions. But if you can't find that, just drop a comment on YouTube. Just go drop it in any podcast. It doesn't matter. We'll get it and we'll answer it. So that's what we're going to do after Justin leaves us today. David and I will take another 25 minutes to answer questions. And we got some good ones in this month, so I'm excited for those. And then just a quick note, obviously we're meeting today, not the fourth Monday. We moved it because of Memorial Day. So again, to all those who served and who gave their life for our country and our freedom, we just want to say thank you ahead of Memorial Day. Many of us have brothers or sisters or family members. David, your son, I think of often, serving in the armed forces. So thank you very much. And then June, July, August, September, October, standard fourth Monday. And then we'll move it up to the, earlier in the month for the holidays toward the end of the year. So get registered for the upcoming each month. And this is for the trifecta, guys. You can invite your real estate agents, your loan officers. And I know many of you guys in the title industry are on and make this a habit each month to join. So that's the housekeeping. Without further ado, let's jump right in. I'm going to stop sharing so you can see Mr. Justin's face. Nice front and center. Move this to speaker view for the recording. All right, Justin. So and David, navigating objections. I mean, first and foremost, we all unsubscribed from overcoming objections because we just felt overcoming, who are we trying to overcome? Whereas navigating was more of I think not only the mindset that we are most powerful in, but also it's a journey with our prospective clients. So let's unpack that a bit. Why navigating?
Yeah, I love that because it really speaks to this idea of putting the problem in front of us, not between us, right? If we're going to navigate this together, we're going to go on this journey together. If we're on the same team, then we're navigating. If we're overcoming, that's really, we've got this block between us. And so I love that shift in mindset to really working on the thing together.
It's powerful. David.
Yeah. We've talked for a long time. Classically people say, oh, let's hurdle objections. Well, you hurdle, you fall, you trip up, maybe you hurdled it cleanly. Again, that's a one-person race. I haven't seen too many people hurdle together. I mean, we've seen a sack race at the picnic, but we haven't seen a dual hurdle. So I don't think that's something you do together. And overcoming is very contentious, is confrontational, and it doesn't have to be. The work we do, Tim, in our building blocks, not only is it navigating when it comes to you and having practiced and navigating together, but at times even knowing what should be an objection, what could be in a buyer, future client's mind, and bringing that up. So, a lot of depth there. Salespeople hurdle and overcome. Sales professionals will navigate, and it is being in the same side of the boat, same side of the table. If you can imagine rowing, you're both rowing, you're navigating together. Now, if it starts going in circles, one of you isn't doing your job, but I think we're good. So I think it's a mindset shift. So for all of you out there that are still hurdling objections or overcoming them, think about it in a little different frame. And Justin, you're just so deep every time. I mean, I can remember when we first spoke, leading up to, well, you were on the podcast and leading up to the sales summit, talking about removing
resistance,
removing the springs. It's again, this kind of falls in that, an objection could be a spring, something between you and the other person, not if you're navigating it together. So just thanks again for being on this. I've been excited about this one for the month that we've scheduled you.
Yeah. Justin, I know one of the big words when I think of you, I think empathy. And I think one of the things that you talk about a lot is how to really lean in and listen and not necessarily listen to respond. I know we're not unpacking like listening today. We brought Allison O'Brien on for that. But I do think it's on us as sales professionals to not only anticipate what objections we're going to face, but also to ask empathetic or ask questions that have empathy all around them. And also when we are faced with an objection, to really dig in empathetically. And I know there's some Chris Voss strategies that we kind of talked about. Why don't we just unpack, like, how do you humanize the objection so that, again, it's not between us? I love that you said it. It's not something between us. It's something in front of both of us to address together.
Yeah, I think for me, that really starts with not waiting till the end to uncover the objections. It starts with really getting a good understanding of what they want to achieve. Getting really curious about them as humans, what they want for their organization, why, if they want that, don't they have it? What have they tried?
Wow.
And really talking through those things. And so that when we get to the end and asking for the sale, closing it, and they bring something up, I'm able to just tie it back to those things that they said they want, right? And so they, a lot of times they might say, you know, we want clarity on who's accountable and process and who owns what. And then we get to the end and they talk about, yeah, we've just, you know, there's a couple key hires that we really need to make first before we do this. And I just ask a question around, totally understand wanting to get those key hires in place. Earlier, you said that one of your goals for this was to get clarity on accountability. Would it be beneficial for you to have that before you hire people? And not assuming that the answer is yes, but just asking, like, would it make more sense to get some of that clarity before you try to hire people? And so those kinds of things that you only get to if you're just leading with curiosity and really understanding what issues they're trying to solve.
It's powerful. Something you just said, not assuming the answer is yes.
Yeah.
And sometimes by assuming it, we don't ask it, because sometimes we assume the answer is no, or sometimes we assume the answer is too complicated, so we just don't ask.
Yeah, one thing I've learned the hard way many times is that I can never underestimate my ability to be wrong. Like, I'm not as smart as I think I am. And my job, and really in what I do, it's to coach, not to give advice, not to consult. And so it's to hold up the mirror to what they've said they want. And when I see something that's incongruent with what they've said they want, point that out and give them the opportunity to recognize it as incongruent and change, or tell me that I'm misunderstanding what they're saying and here's how this thing is different. And I'm only going to hold up the mirror if I can. I'm only going to do that well if I sort of do it open-handed, that I could be wrong. Because if I come into it already decided that I'm right, it's going to feel judgmental. And the walls are going to go up.
Wow. So herein lies empathy. That's how you would want somebody to approach you.
Yeah.
That's how you would value being questioned.
Don't we all hope to be right? I mean, no, it's not I got to be right kind of game, but
yeah, I love being right. One of my favorite things.
These are a few of my favorite things. Yeah,
but I've been accused of that. You can ask the family.
something that I've discovered that has created immense freedom for me is that when you let go of the need to be right, you're just in an entirely different mindset, a different headspace. It removes a lot of pressure. And it really, for me personally, it sort of grounds me to my authentic self
Hmm.
and who I want to be and how I want to show up, which is as somebody that's curious, not judgmental.
It's
Yeah, we talked.
fantastic. As we before
talked a
you go,
lot.
David, before you go, all of you who are listening, okay, we got so much to unpack here I'm excited about. But all you who are listening, to make this super practical, drop in the chat as we go along. What are some of the objections you face? I would love to, and no prep here. I have not prepped Justin with our industry. He's an EOS trainer. Just drop the question, drop some of the objections you face from day to day in the chat. We're going to unpack quite a bit more here, but we're going to come back here before we let Justin go. And I want to see his take on a question that he would ask somebody if he were faced. And again, Justin, you may have a little bit of a disadvantage being outside of a certain industry, but I think you can hold your own. So,
Fortunately, I don't. Right. So.
Because you don't have to be right. I love the quote that says, work to relate, not to be right. Like work to relate with people, not to be right. And so I love the whole non-assumptive approach. So again, empathy and all that. David, you were going somewhere before.
I'm going to go somewhere different because just within like 3 minutes of understanding that you don't have to be right. Like Justin just like I was feeling pressure for Justin if a question came up that he would not necessarily have been faced with. I'm sure he would be faced with something very similar. And he's a worldly guy. But I felt the pressure for him, and for him to say he doesn't have to be right, it's like, that's cool. Let's just go have fun.
Yeah.
So boom. See these mental shifts. This is where
Yeah.
opportunity and growth happens. So I love that. I love the real time. But digging in, you said earlier, empathy, again, humanizing where they're at, always leading like with questions and empathy. We said something as we were talking about doing this podcast about, because we brought up Chris Voss' book, which is a powerful book, a great read, Never Split the Difference. And I know he speaks and coaches to companies. I think you shared the stage with or been at the same event. But he calls it like tactical. There's like a tactical empathy. What does that mean? And while I don't think I necessarily agree, I think there's a place for it.
Yeah, I'm not super clear on the difference between tactical empathy and empathy, other than tactical sounds more like the FBI, which is Chris's background. And that it's I think there's a purpose there in a lot of business leaders. It's empathy is this soft thing, and winners are the killers, right? And I think that's probably, and I don't know Chris other than a couple conversations in passing, but I think a lot of it is helping people understand that there is a tactical reason for empathy. Right? Like it serves an actual purpose, not just this like fuzzy feeling thing.
It's good.
But I think it's just empathy. I think it's being curious. It's asking lots of questions. It's really trying to humanize the other person and what they're experiencing. And so there are some tactics within that framework that don't really resonate with me, but broadly, I love what Chris Voss is doing to encourage and drive curiosity.
We talked at length last week about curiosity, and for me, I think I'm just generally curious, and we talked about, do you think it could be learned, it could be taught, you can improve upon it? And I had really thrown in the towel to that. I think that people are either curious or they're not. I always want to know everything about everything. So that lends very well for my discovery in the sales process. For some reason, that's just how I'm wired. Others are not. And as I threw in the towel, Justin, you talked about an interesting exercise you went through to build curiosity amongst, in a workshop that opened my eyes a bit. And I think curiosity helps you in discovery, which also helps you discover objections, that you need to go navigate. So you want to share a little bit about the workshop? And I mean, I love that part of our conversation. In fact, I sent Tim something today about curiosity. I think was it from Seth Godin?
Yep, Seth, yeah.
Yeah. So I really hope that curiosity can be taught and improved upon, because I am not a naturally curious person. I am a naturally pass a quick judgment. Like, I know the answer. I've already figured this out. It's a great book called The Coaching Habit by Michael Bungay Steiner. And he talks about the advice monster, right? And how we all have this advice monster where we hear a thing and we just want to jump right in and give advice. And that's a lack of curiosity. And I struggle immensely with the advice monster, right? That's where I naturally go. And so I think curiosity it's a retraining and a rewiring of your brain. And just like any muscle or anything like that, you can train your brain. You just have to break some of those old synapses. And this kind of goes back to that conversation we had a couple of years ago about removing the springs, right? Right now, the natural, easiest thing for you to do is to not be curious, right? Like, that's how most of us are hardwired. And so you have to do some things to force that curiosity, maybe introduce some obstacles to not being curious. And so the exercise is one where you break out into groups of 3, and you have a human, an observer, and a coach. That's how we think of it. And you could do the same thing, and it could be human, observer, salesperson, whatever, but the human has an issue, or maybe in this case, they have an objection. And the coach or the salesperson is not allowed to make any statements. They're only allowed to ask questions. And they got to go for as long as they can. We typically try to go for about 5 minutes of just asking questions. And man, that is hard. And you start to uncover, when you're the human, how good it feels for someone to just ask you questions and not make assumptions and not give advice. And so that's just one way that you can start to, like, a very practical exercise that you can do that gets your brain starting to work that way. And we did a very similar thing in the Never Split the Difference workshop that I did. Same, like, you're only allowed to ask questions. So there's something to that.
Fantastic. And by the way, the book you referenced, I just dropped in the chat, folks. So, Coaching Habit, and this looks very, very good. Say less, ask more, and change the way you lead forever. And I dare say change the way you sell forever. We also had a couple of things come in. Tactical empathy is strategic empathy. You don't have to be empathetic, but in business, sometimes you need to seem empathetic. True. Tactical empathy is an approach centered around collaboration and empathy rather than aggressive and abrasive negotiation tactics. I love that. So great stuff. But yeah, tactically using empathy or leverage or inserting empathy into your tactics, or again, I like to call it rehumanizing. I try to put myself into the other person's shoes, and instead of just sympathizing, like how they might feel, really feel it. Really get on the other side of the table, like with them. And then that way the objection is now in front of all of us. So Jim, I see you raise your hand. Drop it in the chat if you can, or maybe you're just agreeing. or maybe Zoom just picked up your raised hand. But
It
that's
was,
awesome.
it was a high five.
Oh, it was a high
We did
five.
that, high five.
Boom. Perfect.
There is a question, as far as an objection in the chat that I saw, I
Yeah, do we
believe.
want to come to that, or do you want to just lob it over? So yeah, let me lob it over, Justin. And this is great. So you just came out of the only asking questions workshop for 5 minutes. And by the way, did that 5 minutes feel grueling? I have to ask, like, was that a long 5 minutes?
Yeah, it's hard. It's very hard.
Which was it hardest on? The observer? Like who? Like
The observer,
which,
right? Like that one's easy. As the human, it's easy. As the coach, it's really hard. But if you're going to ask a good question, you have to get curious about what they're saying. You have to. There's no other way to ask that many questions.
I would have to imagine some more complication questions when they answer one thing that might be something going on in their organization. You would go to, so what's the impact to that across the organization, or if that isn't solved, what's the byproduct of that?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Those are
Is one of the questions, can I stop asking questions now? Is that like a fair question?
So
it would be may I, not can I. May I stop asking questions now?
Here's the objection. I'll kind of make this more of a common denominator from things we hear in mortgage, real estate, title, and other industries as well. But so how do you get past the objection of a prospective client who's been with their current supplier forever, all caps, and is just now looking to make a move or even bring us on as a secondary supplier? There are some loyal, exclusive customers, but I'm having a hard time, cannot overcome the length of this agency relationship. So this relationship. So, and again, it just, this is more of a, it's product, but a lot of service as well. So this isn't just a widget you're buying. This is a lot of integration, a lot of, you're basically moving your whole team, your production system, integrating to a new supplier. Like there are some layers here, legislated, like not legislated, but like highly regulated industry. So thinking with those complications in mind, Justin, how would you approach that? Yeah, we might bring you on as a second. And I would think maybe in this question too, Mary Beth, there could be maybe some, how do you get that urgency, right? Because I know from my history, there's, maybe 2 years you've been hearing that we might bring you on as a second. So Justin, how would you approach that one, man?
Yeah, man, this one comes right back to some curiosity. I think, the objection stems from a commitment to the status quo, right? We've got this thing, it's got all this stuff, and changing would be hard. And so my question would be, why are we talking? Like, what prompted you to reach out and consider changing? Because if everything's great, I would assume you would just keep doing what you've been doing. So what is the thing that you're trying to solve for by talking to me? This happened to me recently where I was at a conference and happened to run into a guy from Nashville, and he found out what I do, and he implements a different system called OKRs, and they're set up to achieve similar things, help you get clear on your objectives and accomplish those things. And he said, well, we've been thinking about switching to EOS. And man, everything in me wanted to just like immediately start telling him all the great stuff about EOS. And instead I was just like, why are you thinking about switching? Right. And he started talking to me. I was like, what have you done to try to solve that stuff within your current framework? Right. What would happen if you solved that stuff? What's going to happen if you don't solve those things? And so it really getting curious about why are we even here? I had a team that came for a 90-minute meeting, which is, for me, that's the sales meeting, right? And that's where we have the go, no go conversation. And a couple of them said, we're really profitable. We're doing great, and we could do nothing and we could still make a ton of money. They're just in a really profitable industry. And about halfway through, after they had said that, and then they had said something about, as an organization being a little averse to change, I just said, hey guys, full transparency, I don't know if this is the right solution for you. One, like, there's going to be change. If you do this, there's going to be change. It's not going to fix any issues you have. You're still going to have to solve them. And
Wow.
I'm curious, if you could continue being really successful without this, why are we here? And it wasn't I wasn't trying to be,
Right.
a jerk. Like, I was genuinely wondering, why are we spending thousands of dollars an hour with all of you? And I saw the cars you drove, so I know how much you make. Like, why are you here spending this time if everything could just be great? And that's when they started talking about the real things. Right. And then we could get real about what we needed to solve for and whether what I do could help them with that. But it took, and this is still not easy for me, but it took me being willing to just lose the relationship, the sale, the client, whatever, by just saying, it doesn't seem like I am the right solution for you.
Wow.
Or to go into selling mode. That's just as bad, if not worse. Well, let me tell you why. Well, no.
Yeah. Everything you said, everything in me, and it resonated so deeply with me as it probably did. Just put a yes in the comments, guys, if it resonated with you. And Justice said, when he said, I'm thinking of switching from OKRs to EOS, everything in me, and I put it in quotes here, everything in me wanted to start telling ... And you wanted to start telling about EOS and how great EOS, but for all of us, I wanted to start telling them how great of whatever coach I am, a sales system I have, an underwriter I am, a title agent I am, a real estate agent I am. Everything in me wanted to start telling.
I wanted to share something. Like, one person in particular, new salesperson on a team. We can't close everyone. We can't sell everyone. Everyone is not right for us. And when I was sitting back thinking about why to navigate objections versus hurdle or overcome them, is some of them help us navigate away from it being the wrong fit. And so, we think of this as let's navigate so we can win. Well, winning sometimes is not bringing on the incorrect client, not wasting time in the sales process, not clogging up our pipeline, not making us feel that we have an opportunity when there isn't one. So as I sat here, it really is navigating it is a two-way street. I mean, it can help us navigate to understand that it's not the right fit, and then we can go in and introduce someone, and but clear it out of our way.
Justin, where do you find, like, even with this person, where it was like, hey, maybe this isn't, like, what are you looking for as you're not assuming a yes? And let's circle back in a second to not assuming, because I think we all lean towards assumption. I know I do. Would love to discuss that and how to stay curious. But where do you, because what David was saying is powerful, where do you leverage navigating objections as an actual qualifying tool to create a healthy pipeline?
Yeah, I think that goes into setting expectations. And so to be honest, for me, when I get to are we going to schedule a session question, it's pretty rare for me to get objections, because I've been working, I know what objections people have. I've been doing this long enough to know the common things that come up every time. And so I'm working on that stuff from the very beginning, right? I'm trying to understand those things from the very beginning with the decision maker. And really, again, it goes back to that, painting the picture of what they're looking for. What do they really want? Does what they want align with what I want to help with? So I had a prospect one time, and one of the first things he said is, we don't really want to grow. We got it out over our skis, right? We grew too fast, and we really need to stabilize. And we're as big as we want to be. We're a family business. There's really no desire to get bigger. And for me personally, I only work with companies that want to grow. Uh, and there's a whole list of reasons for that. But I told him that. I said, so when I hear that, these are the concerns that raises as far as whether I'm the right fit or not. And I talked about some of the things that I push teams to do, and the reason that typically growth-oriented teams are more open to those things than ones that aren't. And he said, I don't know if my leadership team is ready for this. And we never scheduled the 90-minute meeting. He went with a friend of mine who had no problem doing it. And EOS absolutely is helping him. I'm confident. But they just were not the right client that I wanted to invest my time and energy into.
That's fantastic. So you're qualifying. You had a saying, and I jotted it down when we were talking, but it was ELF. Like you're looking for ELF clients. So like, what does that mean to you? Like you kind of have a kind of a gut sense on who's going to be an ideal client for you going in, right? Like, so what does that mean?
Yeah, so ELF, for those that don't know, this is a Joe Polish thing. ELF clients are easy, lucrative, and fun, right? I don't want half clients, which are hard, annoying, lame, and frustrating. And so for me, ELF clients are coachable. They value coaching. They know that they need help. They are willing to be open and honest and vulnerable. It's okay if they haven't been so far, but they're willing to be. And most importantly, they want to grow big and make a big dent in the universe. And the reason I find those clients so easy, lucrative, and fun is because if you just want to grow sort of incrementally, or if you just want to stabilize, you can do that and still live with a lot of pain. And a lot of times that pain is people issues that are the hardest things to solve. If you want to go big or go home, you got to solve those issues. What you've done so far isn't going to get you to where you want to go. And so what I found was that the clients that, and the people that I signed on that did not have much growth ambition, they were sort of passively waiting for EOS to fix everything for them.
Wow.
When the reality is that EOS just spotlights all the issues, but then they have to do the hard work to fix them. So that's another question. That's another thing that I tee up with the decision maker in the very first call. And I just ask, are you willing to make those hard decisions?
So here's where I'm going with, like, you have ELF as a framework, and then you're asking questions that back you into knowing whether they're ELF or not. Like, that's what I love. So you're not trying to convince them. You're trying to qualify them and even sprinkle in some objections. If it's not coming up and you know your typical ELF client faces this objection, you might mention something to the point of typically working with clients that I think have the same growth mindset as you. You know, I face this, or you might say something along the lines to see if it's even, I mean, is that true? You're helping anticipate the objection and even sprinkling it in earlier on to see if that's even a thing for them, or if it's going to come up later, or if it's maybe somebody else. Is that like,
it's as much disqualification as it is qualification, because the worst thing you can do is especially in a coaching scenario, an EOS scenario, not be aligned and not have fun with with that group.
Yeah,
I think we owe it all to ourselves to bring those objections out.
yeah, and I think this is one of those areas where I'm in sort of a unique position in what I do, and the fact that I'm selling something that is myself, that's not scalable. I can only work with about 24 clients at a time. And so I'm fiercely protective of my client list, because serving the wrong client only makes me better at serving the wrong client, right? I
Wow.
want to always be getting better at serving the right client. And
Wow.
so those conversations, and it can be tough to take this approach when maybe I've had a few clients graduate and the pipeline's feeling kind of dry, and all of a sudden I get this warm lead in. That's what was the case with that company I just told you about. Like, came from the parent company, and I was like, all right, I gotta close this. I want to add somebody in June. And I just had to remind myself what the real objective is, which is serving my clients really well, really deeply, and like living a life that I love.
Wow. Serving the wrong client only makes me better at serving the the wrong client. That was a
Yeah, so
good
you
one.
said that to me, and I was like, oh man,
Yeah.
Fear-
really.
No, I
Jen,
love it.
fiercely protective of my time is something you took away. That's awesome. You love that. This has been great. So, all right, okay. So elf client having the, and in easy doesn't necessarily mean an easy industry. So if you're out there listening, you're like, well, I work in a tough industry. No, easy means that they are partnership, spirit of partnership. They understand the work it's going to take. You're not having to convince them of rolling up their sleeves. Like, they are not dismissive of, oh no, it'll be, no, they're unpacking it with you, right? They're easy as far as
Yeah. Yeah, we're
yeah,
gonna do hard work. We're gonna
yeah.
have hard sessions. We have a saying in our community: if you have to drag them in, you're gonna have to drag them around, right? And that's kind of the, like, what I mean by easy. Just like you said, we're gonna roll up our sleeves and do this together. That's easy to me.
And I think it's incumbent on all of us to understand what easy is in our companies and our client base. One of the things that's easy, like I'll tell the story when I visited Justin about 6 weeks ago, might have been longer. I'm going to get in a time warp, was the fact that he was sharing about a client. Justin has this cool office, hangout pad, everything set up. He does sessions in his office. And there was a potential client, which probably won't be a client, that would not. No, the coach has to come to us. He knew immediately. Now there probably were other things along the way that were showing that type of non-partnership, non-collaboration. Justin knows what's going to work, and that is getting them out of their office, getting them out of their environment, making it easy for Justin and easy for them to do the hard work, as opposed to, oh, there's Sally, and oh, there must be a fire, and they're walking the room. So he knows. It's incumbent on all of us to figure out what is easy. I have said for a long time, the worst thing you can do to your organization, if a prospect is a trouble prospect, the worst thing you can do is make them a client and make your organization have to deal with it. But we all have to figure out, what does easy mean? Access to data, access to information, access to collaboration. Justin's figured it out.
And I think so, somebody once said too, a prospect, or maybe it was a client in the past who you moved away from, and they've grown up a little bit and they've learned. So maybe they were difficult in the past and now they're easy. So not becoming cynical, but being, again, willing to re-engage with them. And again, stay in an exploration posture, but also if you already have some history with somebody, keeping having boundaries. So speaking of boundaries, and Jen asked, how do you fiercely protect your time without biting off anyone's head?
Oh man, that's a good question. Fiercely protect time without biting off anyone's head. Um, I'm just very transparent about it, about the fact that what I'm doing when I protect my time, I'm doing it so that I can serve my clients really well. It's not selfishly motivated. Like, I'll give up my own free time. I'm bad about that. I had to make a commitment to my practice manager, Debbie, this year to say no more because I'll give up my free time. But when it comes to the things that take energy away from me, I'm just really transparent, and some people are gonna understand and some people are gonna think I'm a jerk or pretentious or whatever, and I just have to let that go.
So I love that you went there because some of navigating objections is giving up. And let's get back to it, the assumptions real quick before we lean into like being fully present. But giving up assumptions of they're going to think ill of me if I protect my time. And if they do, maybe they're not an elf client, right?
Yeah.
So just being okay with that. So some of this is just a gut check of you don't need to please everybody. But again, the assumption of they're not going to like it if I protect my time, that might be wrong. That might be a wrong assumption. They may value that very much so. So how do you, Justin, when you're navigating objections, how do you practice leaning away from assumption, and how do you practice curiosity? How do you grow that? You're about to walk into a sales meeting with somebody or get on a 30-minute call like you talked about. What do you do like to slow the heart rate and like practice that?
Yeah. So for me, the very practical things that I do, there's a great book called Positive Intelligence by Shirzad Shamin. And it's all about like, our mind has all of these saboteurs. There's the judge, there's the people pleaser, there's the overachiever, and all of those things can sort of hijack our brain and move us away from the sage, which is our wise brain. And there are some very practical things you can do, breathing exercises, literally, I rub the tips of my fingers together so that I can like focus on just feeling the ridges of fingerprints, and like making your brain focus on that is giving you better control over your brain, right? And it's bizarre. The first time I heard it, I was like, I don't know. And then I had friends that were doing it. I was like, okay, I'm gonna give it a try. And I noticed I would spend like 10 minutes doing some deep breathing, doing some of those exercises. And when I showed up into the session or when the client showed up, I was just in a better place. I was more present. My coach said to me a couple weeks ago, the nice thing about focusing on your breath is that your breath can't be in the past and it can't be in the future.
Wow.
Only. And so when we ground ourselves with that, and we just like mental reminders, because what happens if I don't do that is I feel it right away. Like something's off. I feel like I'm striving a little more than just showing up as my authentic self.
Wow. When navigating objections too, one of the things we teach is understand the common objections you're going to face in your industry so that you can have somewhat of a practiced approach. We don't believe in scripts as far as because again, overcoming objections, I have a script for that. We practice intentional power questions. Intentional meaning they're for that objection, power meaning they're open-ended, and several meaning questions, plural, meaning there may be different questions I ask per persona, profile, whatever. I love the question you asked earlier, like, so why are you sitting with me? What caused you to reach out to the objection that we face about, well, I don't want to move. You're talking about moving with you, but it's 2 years and I'm still talking. Like, what made you reach out? And really start to unpack. So I think the problem a lot of times is I go in when I know there's an objection, or I get that email back. It's like, hey, you're the most expensive of 3 options, or like you get that. And a lot of times it's worded in an unnerving way, or maybe they loop somebody else in you don't know, or there's just these things that off put you. And so then you go into this, again, adrenaline drive of performance. And I
Yeah.
think what you just said is so powerful is the slowing down, this focus on your breathing. I'll just say this to everybody listening, no performance necessary. Justin, you said something 2 years ago. I don't know if you remember this, but it stuck with me. I use it. I quote it to that. I quote you all over these stages. You've been quoted. If I don't know, I ask. And when you said that 2 years ago, it's so revolutionary for me because if somebody says something and I don't know, instead of like keeping my head bobbing just because I want this performance, this conversation to move forward, I like, hold on, what does that mean? And just get genuinely curious. And so many people usually will lean in like, oh yeah, I was hoping to ask that question too, or thanks for asking that, or if I don't know, I ask. And so same thing with navigating objections. You don't need this perfectly scripted response. You need some level of intelligence to what you're going to face in any given industry, and always be prepared with power questions that can then unpack and go deeper. But being present in the moment with your breath allows you to even go deeper for that left hook you didn't see, or that odd duck, that you've never heard of before, or right. I mean, staying genuinely curious in the moment.
Literally, physiologically, breathing in through your nose and out through your mouth shuts down that adrenaline spike that you feel. Right? Like this is just how your body works. And so just doing that, just consciously doing that, as soon as you start to feel that sort of like thing creeping up, that can help, because that adrenaline is putting you in fight or flight mode. And you can't have rational conversations in fight or flight mode because all the blood has left your brain and gone to your limbs. And so you have to take some deep breaths, reground, if you're going to get curious. Breathing is more and more and more, I've realized that like breathing is magic. It's wild. And there are so many studies out there, and there's science behind this, just how much conscious breath work can change the game.
So when you ask a question that you've developed to take something deeper or to move a deal to close, it's in your pipeline, they're just stalling out, not moving. So to go back to the objection, our case study here, it's like, what opportunities do you miss out? Hey, Justin, we've been talking about moving together for 2 years, like really getting into a business relationship. I think there's a great fit here. We discussed some of the things we can create together, some of the efficiencies. I know it's going to take time and change, but what does it cost you to wait?
Yeah.
Is that when you would practice a breath after asking that? Because I think I always tend to jump into backing myself out of that because that's nervous for me, and I think it's nervous for them. So I keep talking. Would that be a good time to practice a breath?
Yes. And I like, as I'm leading up to those questions.
Yeah, I was going to say before, maybe even before that.
Because that's when I'm really, like when I said to that team, I don't know if EOS is a good fit for you, and I don't know if I'm a good fit. That was hard because I like, don't tell anybody, but I like money, and they would pay me a lot of money to work with them. And I knew I was like putting it out there that maybe I'm not going to get this money. And I have to like, that question can't be confrontational. It can't seem like I'm like, dangling. I don't want it to feel like I'm doing that, I'm negging them or trying to, like, I want to be as genuine and authentic as possible in that moment. And so, yeah, breathing then, and absolutely a lost executive skill is shutting up. Like that's hard.
Awkward silence.
We're afraid to talk. There is a question. Justin, what's the name of that, the last book you referenced? Someone is,
Positive Intelligence.
I'll find that one as well and put it in the chat. Justin, I know we're coming down on the time, you know, your time with us, and I know you protect your time. So again, thank you. David and I are going to answer a couple more questions that you guys sent in throughout the month here after Justin leaves, and go through a couple of frameworks the field felt found in the if then. But Justin, what are some of the common missteps that you see when it comes to navigating objections?
I think one of the biggest ones is, again, waiting till the end to uncover them. If you're doing work all along to understand, like deeply understand their issue, and help them understand impacts of not solving that issue, I think that's one of the big misses. I would early on, I would ask the questions: what do you want for your organization? What do you not have that you want? What do you want to change? And so I would understand what they wanted. And then when I would try to tie it back, it just wouldn't click. But then when I started going just one step deeper and saying, what have you done to try to get that? What would happen if you got that? What would happen if you don't get it? Right? And really going deep on the front end so that when you get to the objection, you're able to ask if it's price, is this price greater than the cost of this thing happening that you said would have solve these things? Or is price the objection you're coming up with, but really you don't think this system can solve the problems, right? Like, let's figure out what the real thing is. And so I think that's one of the most common missteps. And yeah, for me, everything comes back to starting the right way. And then when you get to the objections, when somebody, says to me, hey, we've talked to a couple of other implementers and you're the most expensive one. I don't worry about that. I just say, yeah. Do you think this is worth it? Like, if they're asking me to like bring my price down to match someone else, well, that's just them saying that they've already decided I'm the best. Right? If they want me to match someone else. So like, I just come in with a lot of confidence. Sure, they charge what they charge. Do you think I'm the right fit though? And if so, is that extra $10,000 over the course of a year going to make that big of a difference? But maybe it will. And that's where you just got to get curious.
It's great. Help
so you're
them
saying never split the difference.
until you've leveraged tactical empathy.
Yes.
Help them understand the impacts of not getting what they want. Again, I think, and why we label this navigating objections, getting to the close is a natural progression. David, you have always said the closing is a natural progression of a good sales conversation, and you as a sales professional moving through your sales process. And what Justin's saying is those objections need to be at the onset. Be uncovering those. Be curious. Curiosity. Can it be taught? I think it can. I'm with Justin on it. I think I've been taught curiosity by being around genuinely curious people. I think more of it's caught than taught, maybe that would be a good way to put it. Because I've seen it exemplified to me and it was fun and it pulled things out of me. And I was like, wow, could I do that? you said it, actually somebody told me this, and but you said it earlier, Justin. You said be a mirror, being a mirror to somebody. A dad told me this as far as fatherly advice. He said, with your kids, he said, BALM, be a loving mirror. And I thought that with the empathy and with that approach, it's like just help them. And that's what you said. You said, do you see me as a fit? Do you think I'm the best fit here? So
Yeah.
do you think the 10,000, like you went back to price, but do you see me as a fit? So in your brain, they threw price out, and a lot of times we assume that means they're trying to fit us in. They've already fit us in. So you're just asking what you maybe don't know, like, or helping them confirm. I love that. You're not assuming. So staying curious, no assumptions. This has been really, really powerful. And Justin, I dare say, if you're having to protect your time and can only take on 24 highly qualified ELF clients, that your closing average is really high. So thank you for joining us and imparting wisdom today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you guys so much for having me. It's been a blast.
Yeah, for sure.
Our pleasure. Good to see you, man.
All right. Y'all have fun with the rest.
Take care. And guys, in the description of this podcast, go over, connect with Justin on LinkedIn, reach out if he can serve you or your company, or maybe a referral partner. Connect with him over there on LinkedIn.
Absolutely. Thanks, Tim. Thanks, David.
See you, Justin.
See you guys.
All right, y'all. David, I've got one for you, man. But before we do, wow, what do you think? Justin's on fire, man.
I've been excited about this all month. You know, I love the time I spend with him. He broadens my perspective on so many things, and just such a cool guy. So it was fantastic.
Marlon, I love it. Uncover objections with curiosity. Thanks for this gem of information. You're very welcome. All right. So the next, as you guys know, the next few minutes, probably about 10 to 15, we'll make this brief, but we have David, I really want to Justin answered one of them, but I want to make our focus on one. So let me stop here.